Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle, a prominent Filipino prelate, is one of the most recognized and influential figures in the Catholic Church today. Known for his charm, humility, and deep theological insight, he has earned the affectionate title of the Lazian Pope Francis due to his approachability, love for the poor, and emphasis on reform. Born in the Philippines, Tagle has risen through the ranks of the Church, holding significant roles including Archbishop of Manila and Prefect of the Vatican's Dicastery for Evangelization. His leadership has been marked by a passionate commitment to serving the Church's growing presence in Asia, as well as a drive to continue the progressive reforms initiated by Pope Francis. However, despite his widespread popularity and influence, Cardinal Tagle's path to becoming the next pope remains unfulfilled. In this listicle, we will explore the key reasons why this charismatic and highly regarded figure did not ascend to the papacy, and how his leadership journey has been shaped by both admiration and controversy. Number 1. Charismatic yet controversial leadership. Cardinal Luis Tagle is often admired for his warm, approachable personality and his ability to connect with people from all walks of life. His charm and infectious smile have earned him comparisons to Pope Francis, especially with his focus on humility, outreach to the marginalized, and his embrace of progressive ideas. Tagle's leadership style, marked by spontaneity and a sense of humor, has made him widely beloved, both in the Philippines and internationally. However, his leadership hasn't been without its controversies. One of the most significant challenges to his candidacy was his involvement in a management scandal in 2022. Tagle was removed from his position as the titular head of Caritas Internationalis, the Vatican-based Confederation of Catholic Relief and Social Service Organizations, following allegations of bullying by the organization's top management. Though his role was largely symbolic and ceremonial, the scandal raised concerns about his ability to handle complex management situations and high-pressure environments. This controversy, which overshadowed his otherwise strong record, led some cardinals to question whether his leadership style was suited for the demands of the papacy, where political and organizational acumen are crucial. While Tagle's approachability remains a strength, the controversy surrounding his managerial experience cast a shadow over his candidacy and played a part in preventing him from becoming the next pope. Number 2. Management and organizational challenges. While Cardinal Luis Tagle possesses a wealth of pastoral experience, one of the key challenges that surfaced during discussions about his potential to become pope was his management and organizational skills. Despite his deep theological knowledge and pastoral influence, Tagle's leadership abilities were questioned when it came to handling the global, bureaucratic machinery of the Vatican. Tagle had been involved in various roles within the Vatican, including his significant position as the Prefect of the Dicastery for Evangelization, which gave him considerable influence in missionary work and church activities in developing countries. Yet, some cardinals and Vatican insiders expressed concerns about whether his experience, while valuable in some respects, was enough to manage the complex and often politically charged environment of the Catholic Church on a global scale. Vatican leadership requires a delicate balance between spiritual guidance and the management of a vast organization with a wide range of interests, often deeply intertwined with political, financial, and cultural forces. Despite Tagle's admiration for his pastoral work and his deep connections with people, some cardinals felt that his administrative experience and ability to navigate the intricate structures of the Church were not sufficiently proven for such a monumental role. In an institution as vast and multifaceted as the Vatican, effective management is crucial, and the perception that Tagle might struggle in this area became one of the roadblocks preventing his elevation to the papacy. Number 3. Not an ideal fit for some cardinals. While Cardinal Luis Tagle's personality and charisma made him a popular figure, not all cardinals believed he was the ideal candidate to lead the Catholic Church. Tagle's candidacy was appealing to many due to his progressive stance on various issues, his approachability, and his global appeal, particularly in Asia. However, some cardinals, especially those more aligned with traditional Catholic values, felt his leadership style was too unorthodox to be effective in the role of pope. Although Tagle is a renowned theologian, having served on the Vatican's International Theological Commission under Pope Benedict XVI, his academic background was both a strength and a potential limitation. For some, his theological approach, which often embraced modernity and reform, did not align with the Church's traditional teachings. There were concerns that his progressive views might stray too far from established doctrine, which made some cardinals hesitant to support him. These concerns were particularly amplified in a time when the Church was facing growing internal divisions over issues such as marriage, gender, and the role of women in the Church. Moreover, his deep connection with Pope Francis, while seen as a positive for many, was not universally welcomed. For those who felt that the Church needed to regain some traditional footing, Tagle's close association with Francis, and his likelihood to continue the Pope's reforms, might not have been desirable. They sought a balance between embracing the Church's rich traditions and being responsive to contemporary challenges, and they feared Tagle's election could lead to further division. As a result, despite his many strengths, some cardinals believed he wasn't the right fit to navigate the complex cultural and doctrinal landscape of the Church. Number 4. Political controversies in the Philippines. Cardinal Luis Tagle's move to Rome in 2020, while seen as a natural progression in his career, came amid growing political tensions in the Philippines, where Tagle had been a prominent religious and political figure. In his home country, Tagle's influence wasn't limited to religious circles, he was also actively engaged in the political discourse, especially on issues of social justice and human rights. This involvement led to controversy, particularly under the administration of President Rodrigo Duterte. Duterte, known for his strong stance on issues such as the war on drugs and his often harsh rhetoric, was openly critical of the Catholic Church, and by extension, Tagle's role within it. Tagle had been an outspoken critic of Duterte's policies, particularly his human rights record, which put him at odds with the government. The political climate in the Philippines, with its increasing polarization, made it difficult for some cardinals to view Tagle as a neutral figure. There were concerns that his past entanglements with domestic politics might influence his ability to maintain the Vatican's diplomatic neutrality on global issues. In the highly sensitive environment of the papacy, where the leader of the Catholic Church must remain above the fray of national politics, Tagle's perceived political affiliations and public stances raised doubts among some cardinals. The ability to manage a global church while staying above national politics is crucial for any pope, and in Tagle's case, his political controversies in the Philippines were seen as a potential liability, making some hesitant to offer their support for his papacy. Number 5. Focus on reform versus tradition. Cardinal Luis Tagle was widely seen as a champion of reform, much like Pope Francis, and his progressive views resonated with many in the Church. He was often perceived as someone who would continue the Pope's legacy of social justice, inclusion, and a pastoral approach that emphasized mercy and compassion over strict doctrinal enforcement. His approach to the Church was focused on moving it into the modern world, engaging with young people, and confronting issues such as poverty, inequality, and the sexual abuse crisis with transparency and reform. However, this progressive stance, while widely admired by many, also led to concerns among more conservative members of the Church. There were those who feared that his focus on reform might shift the Church too far away from traditional teachings and practices. The Catholic Church has always had a delicate balance between maintaining its deep-rooted traditions and adapting to the changing world, and some cardinals worried that a papacy under Tagle would swing too much in the direction of liberal reforms, potentially alienating the more traditional factions of the Church. While Tagle's emphasis on inclusivity and justice was seen as essential for the future of the Church, those favoring a more conservative approach viewed these reforms with skepticism. They worried that too much change, particularly in areas like the role of women in the Church or the Church's stance on LGBTQ+ issues, might lead to division within the ranks of the clergy and the global Catholic community. As a result, his candidacy was supported by some but viewed with caution by others who feared the consequences of an overemphasis on reform at the expense of tradition. Number 6. The appeal of an Asian pope. Cardinal Luis Tagle's candidacy for the papacy was notably historic due to the possibility of having the first Filipino pope, and indeed the first pope from Asia. This was seen as a momentous step for the Catholic Church, reflecting the growing influence of Catholicism in Asia. Tagle's deep connection with the people of Asia, especially young Catholics, made him a highly appealing figure for a global papacy. His ability to relate to people from diverse cultural backgrounds, along with his compassionate approach to pastoral care, made him an ideal candidate for a global church that is increasingly focused on the dynamic and rapidly growing Catholic populations in Africa, Asia, and Latin America. However, despite this appeal, the potential for an Asian pope did not automatically guarantee his ascension to the papacy. While Tagle's presence in Rome had highlighted the need for greater representation of the Church's Asian faithful, the idea of an Asian pope remained a controversial issue for some cardinals, particularly those from the Western world. The Western influence within the Vatican hierarchy often led to a preference for candidates who were seen as more closely aligned with the traditions and priorities of the Western Church, which continues to dominate Vatican politics and decision-making. Additionally, there were concerns about whether the Church, with its centuries-old European roots, was truly ready to embrace an Asian pope, especially given the Vatican's long history of leadership from European cardinals. While the global appeal of an Asian pope could have revitalized the Church's influence, particularly in Asia, the question of whether the Vatican's leadership was ready for such a radical shift remained unanswered. Therefore, despite the excitement surrounding Tagle's candidacy, the question of his ability to navigate the complex political realities of the Vatican and the broader Catholic world may have led to his eventual exclusion from the papacy. Number 7. His age and length of pontificate. At 67, Cardinal Luis Tagle was considered relatively young by Vatican standards, especially in comparison to other papal candidates. While he was in the prime of his career and had demonstrated immense potential, some cardinals may have felt that his age worked against him in the race for the papacy. The papacy is a demanding and extremely taxing role that requires not only immense spiritual wisdom but also the physical stamina to manage the global Church's administrative and pastoral needs. Many cardinals likely sought a pope who had a more established track record of leadership and had perhaps experienced a longer pontificate in a significant ecclesiastical position. In the context of the papacy, age often comes with the perception of experience and gravitas, qualities that some cardinals felt were necessary to confront the challenges facing the Church, particularly in the areas of global outreach, church reform, and internal governance. Additionally, the longevity of a papacy is always a consideration. At 67, Cardinal Tagle could potentially serve for several decades, but some cardinals may have been hesitant to place such a monumental responsibility on someone who had not yet shown enough long-term leadership in high-profile Vatican roles. In contrast, older candidates might have been seen as more experienced, stable, and prepared to undertake the lengthy responsibility that comes with leading the Church in a rapidly changing world. This concern about age and the relative brevity of Tagle's career within the Vatican may have influenced the decision not to elect him, despite his many virtues and his significant potential as a leader of the global Church. Cardinal Luis Tagle's journey towards the papacy, despite his immense charisma, deep theological insight, and global appeal, reveals the complex web of factors that shape papal elections. From leadership challenges to political controversies, his candidacy was marked by both admiration and skepticism. His progressive stance on reforms, the potential to be the first Asian pope, and his youthful energy certainly made him a compelling candidate, yet these very strengths were sometimes seen as obstacles by those within the Vatican. Ultimately, the decision not to elect Cardinal Tagle was shaped by a combination of pragmatic concerns about his leadership style, his relatively short tenure in key Vatican positions, and the nuanced political and doctrinal preferences of the cardinals. While he remains a significant figure in the Catholic Church, the papacy requires more than just pastoral qualities. It demands a unique balance of spiritual authority, managerial acumen, and the ability to unite the global Church under the pressures of both tradition and modernity. As we reflect on the reasons why Cardinal Luis Tagle didn't become pope, it becomes clear that his story is one of both promise and limitation. His future in the Church remains bright, but for now, his role as a spiritual leader and reformer continues to be felt in other ways, far beyond the papal throne.